At Your Instep is brought to you by Comic Town and BCW Supplies. Hello, and welcome to At Your Instep. My name is Morgan. I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And Dave.
Hi.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week.
We're all here.
We are all here, and we were thinking about not even casting this week, but things sort of broke our way, and decided to put out a little bit of a filler episode of sorts.
Hey, nothing with all of us is filler.
Well, we know we're not going to talk about the limited GP that happened over the weekend. For sure, like 100%. If you're tuning in and wanting that, I'm very sorry.
Oh, no,
I don't even know who won.
Yeah, I
so.
didn't
Zero
realize
idea.
there was a limited GP this weekend.
Team limited.
It is team limited, yeah.
Happy Easter.
So we won't really be talking about that, but obviously, like we're on the cusp of Dominaria, and we wanted to like highlight some of the flavor, maybe some of the cards, some of the art, not like spoil too much. You know, we do have the Palooza coming up, and we don't really want to waste all of that good energy on these cards just quite yet. And I know that Mike obviously missed last week and had some opinions on some of the things that we talked about. So we definitely wanted to, allow him to be able to, share his opinions and all that jazz. So the show is going to be pretty much all community segment, and then what's happening this weekend, of course. So let's just jump right in, and we'll start with you, Mike. You said you wanted to share your opinions on a couple things, right?
Yeah, much like Dominaria, we're going to go back in time. I also think that was Huey Lewis in the news, and possibly Michael J. Fox. But, I wanted to, so you guys did your signature spell books last week, so that's where I wanted to start.
Yeah.
Dave?
How did I do?
You guys managed to hit, I think you guys hit 3 cards correctly.
It's not bad.
So you hit Young Pyromancer, and you hit Chandra the Firebrand, and you leave her alone. She is a saint, and she won many dollars from me, so you leave me alone. Granted, it may have been Ponder and Frost Titan and Bonfire of the Damned, but Chandra was there, okay? And Elsa Sun's Champion, you also correctly hit upon. Others for me, and honestly for me, like these are cards that like I know that I played for a long time in various decks, and cards that I will like. There are certain cards on this list that like going back to cubes, like I can't help myself.
I think I know 2 more, but I'll let you.
Fair enough.
I'll let you do it.
So in addition to those 3, 2 of those literally came from like the same deck, obviously. So the first one I want to mention is Astro Slide, which is one you probably could have guessed. I played a lot of Astro Slide when it was in Standard, and I really enjoyed that deck, and I really credit it as a deck that really taught me more about like playing effective Magic, because like timing rules were so important with that, and like it was it was very enjoyable. Who just dinged?
That was me.
Wow.
Dinged again.
So professional, Morgan.
Yep, that's me. That's my middle name.
Next up is Goblin Pile Driver. A card that I played, like that was the card I was very excited to to get 4 of, to play a ton of when it was in Standard. Played Goblins literally until it rotated. And like I essentially quit Magic after that block, and we went to we were gonna go to Kamigawa anyways. And now I've picked it back up again. They showed me War Chief and Dominaria. I went and bought the 8 whack deck in preparation, and I've actually played it the last 2 weeks at FNM and have a record of 8-2 with it now across 2 FNM tournaments. So
Not bad.
I gotta tell you, as much as it pained me to spend $30 on 4 Legion loyalists, there's just something about giving your Goblin Pile Driver trample on first strike and attacking with a bunch of goblins that just like makes me so happy. I know, like I probably look like a jerk to my opponent because I just have like a grin on my face. I'm just like, he's so big though.
It could be worse. You could have spent that $30 on 1 Goblin Lore. That's a Goblin card.
I sold a couple of those about a month ago, and I should have held on to them. So because I felt good selling them for 10 apiece.
Yeah, same.
Jokes on you. I clearly should have picked those up from you guys.
Apparently, yeah.
We offered them. We were
I
like,
know.
hey, you want these?
I know.
I think I tried to trade them to you twice.
I know.
You just kept telling me no.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't get rid of them fast enough.
Eggs on my face.
Yeah. Oops.
But yeah, also a card that randomly always people forget, but when it's relevant, it's really relevant. I also have been playing the AWAC deck a little bit on Moto, and I had the old triple pile driver draw, and my opponent cast Attention Sphere, and then just sat there on stop on his turn for a while as he realized that like it resolved and he had no legal targets. and it was like, you're gonna die next turn.
It didn't break Moto?
No, it didn't. No, he just couldn't target it because it has protection. It was real funny. So next up is Upheaval. Yeah, that's a card I played in standard, and it's one of those cards that if I open it in the first pack in the cube, I have to take it. Like I cannot stop myself. I love casting that card.
I can't really say anything because Armageddon was on my list.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, it's the same reason. I played it originally in the old the Mirari's Wake deck. You would wake and then you'd have Cunning Wish and go get Cunning Wish. I don't know.
No, you can't get Upheaval with that one.
I don't know. It played Cunning Wish, but I guess we were Cunning Wishing for Upheaval. But it was an Upheaval deck, just the same. Gifts Ungiven is my next one. Played a ton of that, and I was trying to figure out what's the right spell to pick from like the Blue-White Giftstron, and well, I'm not gonna pick Tron. So, and last but not least, this one is the only real casual card in my list. Now I could have gone with like Booby Trap, which I think I did put that top 4 thing we did a while ago, and I do love that one. But I'm gonna go with Fiery Gambit. I may own a playset of that card in foil, and also many foil card.
Who doesn't?
Probably, I would assume most other people do not. And I've flipped many coins, and what's hilarious, I've been on this cast talking about how like I wouldn't play the the Goblin Lore Burning Inquiry, like the Hollow One deck, because of its variance. But apparently, casual me, like high school casual me, was when I wasn't because I never played at like an actual tournament. But if I just was messing around for fun, apparently flipping coins is all I wanted to do, because I had a deck that was all Mana Clashes and Fiery Gambits and Krark Thumbs, and I can't assume that anybody I played with would have thought that was fun.
And you didn't like the Hollow One deck?
I know. I don't understand. It feels like totally separate parts of my brain, because I would not play that Fiery Gambit deck now. Like I played too competitively to do that. Cube is like the only place I would do it. I know our buddy Keller's putting in his Type 4 stack, and that made me happy because I'll play it in Type 4 all day. I think I'm going to donate one of my foil ones to him just because I wanted to know that it deserves to see some play. It deserves a home. But that is my signature spell book. I had to give at least one little casual nod, and that's where I was at. So it's a diverse one, and I don't know if anybody brought all those spells together to like dueling another mage, so to speak. I don't know how well I would do. I would just hope that Elspeth resolved every time. So, next thing though, I want to talk a little bit about Arena, which you guys talked about last week. Mainly because I'm one of the people that I think Morgan talked about last week who probably apparently hasn't given it a fair chance, and I shouldn't complain about it, and I should just tell WotC they're doing a great job and go give everyone a hug and buy them an ice cream cone and tell them they played great even though they struck out 4 times. I'm letting this get to me in a different way. In all honesty, though, I do think Arena is still actively not very good. And Morgan, you and I got into a conversation about this a little bit. I think it got a little heated when we first talked about it. We both had very strong opinions on it. Granted, this was in chat, so I say heated, but it was like, oh no, he used punctuation.
Somebody used caps. Oh no.
But I think that, as I've gone through and read a bunch more about other people are thinking about it, people have articulated what my frustration originally was with it. People have shown their frustration with the auto tapping, and it's been mentioned before that you can turn on full play features. And I think I made it sort of clear before that I think the fact that there's an option to turn on full play features is the big warning light that you're not really playing Magic consistently, because your opponents get to just put training wheels on to play the game. The game doesn't have 100% functionality and probably never will. There's a lot of talk recently about how the game can't support combos very well and doesn't really have a good way to show to loop appropriately, and it's very difficult to navigate if you do loop anything. There are some people who were positing that the coding of the game currently couldn't do a full on active consistent loop. It just iteration wise, it will bog it down too much, which I think is interesting. And there's some other stuff on that was written on Reddit and whatnot. And I also think that and I know they're fixing this. They put in the full stops, but for a long time playing that game in the first beta for it, you didn't have stops for anything. So if I had wanted to bluff to my opponent that I might have a decision to make, the game wouldn't let me at all. And the game defaults this way. Now, you have to set your stops on Moto, too. But on Moto, the way the screen is set up, it's always been pretty intuitive because you can just unlock the little thing and you can tell where the stops are. The animation stuff makes it a little stranger, and I think that, it takes the bluffing element out of it. Now, of course, when you compare this to like games like Hearthstone has always been the one we've compared it to. Bluffing isn't really a thing. Now, I know they have traps now, but for the most part, you just play your turn, then they play their turn. It's obviously the interaction point in the stack that makes Magic so hard to turn into a product like this in the first place. But it feels consistently dissatisfying. The play experience for that has felt consistently dissatisfying, and I don't know what they can do to really fix that. It doesn't feel like real Magic to me. So I don't know. I'm trying to give it a try. Ran the update. I know a lot of people have still big frustrations with the economy, and I know you discussed that last week, the frustration with that. But like you had like Chase Andres today, like talking about how the economy just doesn't work as is, and like that's a pretty big name in Magic Finance.
And I would agree with him. Like that is definitely like one thing that I think you can probably ask anyone about Arena, and their answer would be no matter what they actually think about the actual game, the economy is just bad. It's just not good.
And there was some discussion on like what is with that. Like obviously you'd want things like wild cards to show up more often, or pack price. Then packs to be more easy to attain. But he mentioned the fact that obviously they still have to and want to sell paper packs, so they can't devalue digital packs too much, or else they hurt that business model. It was mentioned in one of the comments there, and I think we've said this before, that they could look at like the, and they might be planning on doing this. They're not going to tell us this yet, but like the Pokemon business model, which is if you buy a paper pack, you get a digital pack, which I think would go a long way to making some of that feel better. But for me right now, I see a game that I don't really view as full Magic, that has a lot of issues that I don't think, that I think they're trying to paint a pretty picture over, quite literally. And then the economy's bad, so the game feels, I don't know, for a game that is suspiciously close to what I would consider a soft launch, or at least a beta launch, as far as like now we're having people actually stream it. It's going to get wider access soon. It feels like a game that has a lot of real problems, and I don't know. So that's where I'm at.
No, I still have only played 2 games, so have not advanced that at all.
I'm trying to give it another chance, but I don't know. It's just the whole system frustrates me. I just don't. If my opponent can literally click a button that makes them have to do less work, like less thinking to play the game, like then we're not playing Magic. Like my opponent on Moto can't auto tap. My opponent in Paper can't go. I don't know. Like I guess they could just like shuffle their lands and like cut and like tap them and hope that like
does this work? Oh no.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, like you're also not mentioning that if your opponent is auto tapping, they're not playing the game optimally either.
But that's not the point, though. Like, that's the well. I mean, I guess that is really the point. That you're not playing optimally. You're not really playing the game. Like,
I mean,
so like for me, like
I guess, but like a new player will also will still make those mistakes as well. They will tap the wrong lands. We all still tap the wrong lands.
You don't see a difference between a person making that decision in competition and the machine making that decision in competition. You really don't see a difference.
Not if I have all requisite like mana to. Unless I'm not like breaking the rules.
Man, I just like fully disagree there. Like,
what are you trying to say?
I see what you're saying.
Like, if a person punts, like play skill wise, then yes, a person punts. If the machine is tapping for them to making decisions for them, they are not making decisions.
Right, and more than likely, the machine is going to choose wrong for them.
But that's not what I'm saying.
So
like,
it's to their benefit to...
I'm saying that the player had no input into it.
Correct.
Like, the punt is not on the player at that point. It's just built into the game.
Or the non-punt. Like, the decision, like, maybe it will tap optimally for them, and it shouldn't. Like...
But you still have to make a decision to like play the spell. Like you still have to make a decision to like figure out the line.
The lands are all the same then.
But you're just like assuming that people are like on this computer program randomly clicking their cards and hoping that everything works out all right. You still have decision points to make in the game.
That's not what I'm saying. Yes, but Magic is about every decision.
And you can still make every decision.
Yeah, but my opponent might not have to, and that's stupid. That's really stupid.
But so
just because that means they might be making more so optimal plays doesn't mean like that's what the spirit of the game should feel like.
I just don't understand like how much of an impact like this is going to be like making. If your opponent knows that they can cast a spell,
no, this is for me. This is a like I'm not talking about impact on gameplay there. If that decision is like a philosophical issue for me with the entire concept of the program. Like, let's make this Magic with training wheels so that it's easier for mobile players, and then we'll pretend it's real Magic. And that's what it feels like with the initially not having stops and playing around with those. Like, it's just like, oh, it's fine. Don't really worry about the stuff that makes it feels like the Portal version of Magic when you jump into that program for the first time, and that's fine because that's what duels used to be. Essentially, it was like, here's, back before Magic, you had like starter, intermediate, and expert levels, right?
Yeah,
Your
no.
core sets were intermediates, and you had Portal, right? Like this feels like it's like, well, you're not quite ready for expert level sets yet, but we'll get you there. And like I understand that like, it should teach the game in some way, but
Yes.
If you're gonna jump on and say this is Magic, and then I'm gonna hold your hand while you do it, then that's not Magic.
But I mean, like, how do you teach someone Magic if you're not going to hold, like, if not, you're going to have some sort of hand holding.
If you go to FNM for the first time and say, I want to draft, I know I need help doing this, they'll teach you how to do it, but they're not going to be like, okay, now make this pick. Okay, now tap this land.
Yeah, but
okay.
I'm not talking about people that just want to, like, do the wrong thing and dive into head first going into an FNM without knowing how to, like, do anything. You have to, like, this is for people, for, like, Square One. Like, for people that know of Magic but literally know nothing else about it. So you have to start from square one. Like, you have to teach them.
I hope they go back to having, in addition to like the core like gameplay, they go back to having a very robust Duels of the Planeswalkers leveling system before you're allowed to ever play an online match.
But I just, like, I don't understand, like, what kind of difference the game, like, tapping someone's lands for them is making. I just don't understand.
It makes all the difference.
I guess I just don't see it.
And that's fine, but to me it makes all of the difference.
Because, like,
if you can take a decision away from the player that casually, then you are like, the fact that could be turned on, and they're saying that at some point Arena could have like Pro Tour implications, and like somebody could just be like on there playing with like auto tapping, and I don't know, that just seems crazy to me.
I suppose I just don't understand.
I can't wait for that inevitable article. I auto tap my way in.
Okay, like I don't get it.
Auto tap 8, does that work?
So you're just saying, like, since I no longer have to think about how I'm tapping my lands, suddenly I have all this extra brain space to play the game better?
No. What do you know? I'm just saying that, like, taking any decision. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Like, I'm obviously being hyperbolic, but taking any decision out of the hands of the players reduces the play experience. It just does.
All right. I mean, you can have that enabled. You can turn that on, and maybe down the road when we actually have like best of 3 matches, maybe that's how it has to be played. Maybe you have to tap your own lands, so everyone has to be on the same playing
that's
field.
True, but I can only evaluate it. Like I think what I heard from you last week was like, oh, well, they're going to still keep working on this. That's fine, but I've given them feedback based on my play with this, and I'm evaluating this thing as is. And evaluating it as is, it feels like a bad product to me. And that's how I feel.
It's so weird how we think about that quite differently.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, you think that half of the product is actively bad, so you're still grading it as an F. So I don't really know what you're defending.
That's true. I just, like, I don't know. It has to be somewhere, and there has to be like some positives to glean from the product, and I think it's workable. I don't think like currently it's not a passable product. The product is still in a closed beta. It's not an open beta. You can't just like sign up and get into May. It's still like, I would hope a long way from actual release, an actual iteration by WotC to be used. Because if it is not, then yes, I will completely be on your bandwagon that it's a bad product. But I feel like us as a community, us as Magic players in many ways, shapes, or forms, definitely like to be Gloomy Gus's, definitely like to be Doomsayers. And like I'm guilty of that as much as anyone else.
Not as much as me, though.
But I think like
our resident droopy dog.
I think that this is something that is going to be important for Magic's life. Like, is going to be important for Magic lifespan.
I don't disagree. So I wish they would have done it better when they did it.
And it's not done yet, though.
But see,
it hurts to admit it. But yeah,
here's the thing, though. I will say that we live in a different era for games that are in beta than we have before. Like, when look at something like Fortnite, which is probably the most popular game on the planet right now, is in beta technically.
Yeah.
It's in pre-release still, but it's on every major console and PC and mobile. So like, when they go into open beta, are you still going to say, well, but they're still in beta? Like, is that, I don't know, that wasn't really an impersonation of you. I think I was doing Chewy from like Monday Night Magic.
Yeah, or like Yeah,
I do not know where it just went, but it wasn't anywhere close to you, and I apologize for that.
The difference with those games and Magic is a pre-existing game that they're trying to port into a platform.
Well, so was Fortnite.
No,
it was called PlayerUnknown's
okay. Well,
I got him.
Yeah. But like, yeah, of course. Like, if I'm building a game from the ground up and I get to make it and design it, and I don't have any like reign other than the ones I put on myself, then yeah, sure, I can develop for whatever other platform because I can determine my scalability.
That's literally not what my argument is. My argument is that like how you assess what beta means when you say I think this is far from release. I don't think that's how the beta structure actually works anymore. You were saying on games that don't get are not going to get an official like in-store release. You know what I mean? Like Arena doesn't come to GameStop. You know what I mean? So because of that, I think that like you have to judge beta a little bit differently. Yes, we're still in closed beta, but we're not in like hush hush beta anymore. We're let's share the product beta. So I think we're closer to release than you think we are, and I think that WotC is dangerously close to not paying attention to some pretty negative feedback consistently. Maybe less so on the gameplay. Like, there's obviously plenty on the gameplay. I will say most of the negative feedback I've seen, because I don't go searching for it too much, has been my interactions with like what I read on Twitter from the pro community. I know that the pro community isn't always the best gauge for this, but from a high level play positioning though, I think that is true.
Right? Yeah. The game it wasn't made for the pro community. I think it's more targeted towards getting people in the door.
You're right, but WotC's again. I mean, this is them jumping the gun, maybe. But WotC's the one who said that. Oh yeah, but we could do Pro Tour invites through this. We could do this. Like what they have said that already. So like,
yeah, let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not as well.
Is that what you're saying? I auto tapped my way.
Yeah,
I still think they could. That's the thing. Like this product is unfinished, and I think that
but it's not as unfinished as you're saying it is. This isn't like we
I don't
walked
think
in
that you
and
could
the
just
roof's
like.
Not on yet.
I don't think you could just blanketly apply like how other games betas work up to this. Like you just can't.
I think I can apply a more modern beta structure to this one. It's following the same cycle as those have.
If you're assuming that the development for this game is more modern, it could not be.
Okay. I have no point to argue. Like I'll just let it unfold the way that it is.
Just for the sheer fact that like the games that typically are still in quote unquote beta, like Fortnite, they are games that can definitely have a shorter dev cycle, and definitely benefit from having these betas because they are janky, but janky is good in those type of games because they create emergent gameplay, and those are good for the people that are going to be playing them. The streamers, the people that are getting the game for free and understand that within this that there are some bugs and everything like that. But
I mean, there's probably a lot of bugs in Arena. Insects.
Yeah. But you can't I just don't think that you can, at this point in time, I understand that beta definitely means something different than what it used to, but I don't know if we're at that point where we can just blanketly state that beta is now the new 1.0.
No,
beta is the new
I'm not saying
release.
that. I'm just saying, like, all my point of contention was you saying this is probably far from release. I'm saying that I don't think it is that far from a wide, and I will say wide release as an open beta, then you think it is. That's all. We don't have to like stick on the points of contention for this. We can have different opinions on this, and I can be right, and that's okay.
But open beta is still not a finished product.
Open beta is super close to a finished product.
It can be for certain games, but not for every game.
So if WotC moves, like say within the next 2 or 3 months, WotC moves into open beta, right? At that point, do you actively think they will make significant changes to the game? Be honest. It's WotC we're talking about.
I think that the economy will be significantly changed.
But nothing else.
I think that they will continue to make improvements to the game. I don't know what your definition of significant is.
I'll say improvement with quotation marks. I'm being really coy here. I don't think the game changes very much at all in the next few months, and still goes to open beta. So I think they were when they showed it the first time, they were very, very ready to pat themselves on the back with how awesome it looked, and I think that's all they really care about. So
I think that's being very disingenuous to the people that are working on that game.
Probably is. Don't care. Sorry, guys.
I mean, okay. if that's how you want to feel, if that's how it's going to be, then that's fine. I'm going to have more hope in the people making this game, and hopefully the people they've been listening to and receiving feedback. But I think that change can be slow, especially when you are working, like when you're sub-layer, when the game you're building off of is Magic the Gathering, one of the most complicated games to exist.
Maybe take the 6 people who are working on Carnage Tyrant's roar sound effect and have a few of them work on the other parts. That's cool.
And that may not appeal to you. I understand
I'm
that.
just being really, really... You're letting me do this now. I said we should move on.
All right.
I did open a Nicol Bolas, though, and that was sweet.
Cool.
He talked to me.
What did he say to you?
Something about he's free or something like that. Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't open up Rita Repulsa? How many years did he say it had been since he was free? Was it after 10,000
years? I don't know. Yeah, something. Yeah.
So next up, Dave, I think that you had something you wanted to make a little mention of about streamers.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna mention. I noticed some discussion today on the Twitters.
The Twitter sphere.
With some pros getting involved. So Andrew Shrout had kind of a hot take on people that ghost on streams. And if you don't know what ghosting is, I guess not everybody would know what ghosting is. So ghosting is like if somebody is streaming and you are the opponent, then you can go and kind of watch the stream as you're playing, so that you can see, cards in hand and listen to their comments and things like that, and essentially have all the information. Is it? And there was some discussion on, is it considered cheating? Is it not? Personally, I don't consider it cheating. I do think it's kind of immoral. I think it's more of a morality, thing than actual cheating. So
let me ask you, what is the morality of bourgeois streamer taking money from the proletariat on Magic Online grinder?
I don't know. I got nothing.
We discussed a little bit of this off cast, a less bad accent, but that I will say that Shroud is the person you'd said, like you mentioned that like the person who was playing against said streamer didn't agree to be on camera, didn't make any sort of decision to do this, right? Like if I go to Star City, like I have to sign a waiver.
Yeah. If you play in a Star City Open, you have to sign the back of your deck list.
Anytime you're on camera, you have a waiver you have to sign that says hey, we're going to use you or your.
It's been a long time since I've been on camera, so I don't know what those.
Even for the Comic Town tournaments, you had to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's just a liability issue for them. They're publishing you. Now, granted, on Moto, it's not probably not your real name. It's obviously not your face or anything like that. And I would have to guess. I'm not a lawyer, nor have I read this, but I have to guess that you do agree to that being a possibility within the end user agreement. I would assume something in there has to be about that, since they're okay with their game being streamed. There'd have to be something in that license that that end user agreement that covers that. That being said, the person who is streaming is making money off of your time and your play. So I don't know. I guess if it's a random night, you're frustrated and you're like, oh well, I'm just gonna go look at this person's stream, and yeah, you're probably a bad person for doing it, but whatever. The cops aren't gonna come and be like, Twitch police.
It's not like the vegan police.
It's the vegan police, yeah.
Yeah, I would never do it because I play Magic mostly for the competition. And I'm not really playing a lot of sports these days, so this is kind of my competitive outlet. And it's if I'm essentially cheating by looking at my opponent's hands, it's what's the point? You know what I mean? I'm not really proving that I'm better or anything like that by doing that. It's just, I don't know. That wouldn't be fun. That wouldn't be fun for me.
No, I agree with you. I've played against Caleb Durward is probably the guy I've played against the most recently. During the summer, sometimes when I have some downtimes, I played against Newmont a number of times last summer. But just because of when I've played Moto and how much more I've played Moto in the last year and a half, I've played against streamers a bunch, and I always know because I know their names. Right, or I randomly get messages because people know they at your Instep account and they our name, and they're like, oh hey, is it this is Mike, right? And it's yeah, this is I oh, I must be playing someone that you're watching, right? That's weird, and it's happened fairly often, but I've never been I gotta go do this. Now, what I will normally do is after the match is over, I'll open it up and just see like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing that, but probably I just want to hear them say nice things about me, I guess. Like, oh, you played well.
Man, that
Okay,
guy.
good. Oh, thank goodness.
Man, that guy was amazing.
Or if there's been times I've beaten the brakes off him, and I want to see if I salted him a little bit. And I don't know why I want to hear that, but I kind of do. I just want to hear him be salty.
Yeah,
so.
that's just a primal human thing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I'd say, most of the streamers that I watch, like, almost never get salty after a match. It's just kind of like,
yeah,
they understand. They play enough Magic that
there's
it's like,
one who does, but I don't watch that streamer. You enjoy watching that streamer. He's the one that this kind of is the crux about, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Come on, Jacob's gets a little salty. I think my only real claim to fame anymore is him playing the Big Boros deck and then immediately saying it was actually just like a ham sandwich piece of trash. Like that might be my crowning achievement.
Yeah.
But I will say for him, like, he got ghosted in, you said, top 8 events. Like, in the top 8s of events, I should say.
Yeah, so the last 2 weeks, Michael Jacob has streamed the Pauper Challenge on Magic Online, which is on Sundays, and he has top 8 of back-to-back weeks. And then we know, so in the first week, he for sure got ghosted because his opponent's screen name was also in the chat. So it's really hard for him to, conclude anything else from that. And then he lost in the finals this past weekend, which it wasn't as clear cut, but it was fairly certain that it happened again.
Right.
But again, my thing is, if you're playing an event that you really care about, or like you want to do well or you want to win, there are steps you could take to prevent getting ghosted. Whether it's people have used like a hand blocker, like they'll just put up something in front of where their hand is so you can't see the cards. I know Jacob specifically has said he doesn't like doing that because he likes actually discussing like the lines of play and things like that. And it does take away, if you're watching it, it does take away from the experience if you don't have all the information. But you can also do things like, set it up on a delay. Like a lot of people do like 10-minute delays for, when they stream PTQs and things like that because they're actually things on the line.
I like that 10-minute exact, like 10 minute and 1 second delay, just in case that person's trying to wait it out.
Yeah.
Wait out the delay. They're just like, oh, you timed out.
Right. So it's like, as a streamer, I mean, and I've never streamed, so I don't know. But I mean, there are things that you can do to prevent from getting ghosted. Now, I think in majority of time, like if you watch people that stream regularly, like Newmont or like Caleb George, for example, they'll just play in like leagues, and I don't think they really care if people ghost them or not. They're like, I'm pretty sure their stance is just, hey, if you want to ghost me for like a pack or whatever, you got me.
Yeah, right.
Which, in the end doesn't matter. But if you're playing for real prizes, I mean, it's probably a good idea to take some precautions.
Yeah, probably.
But in any case, I would never do it, but I'm not surprised that other people would, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the overwhelming thing here is like, don't do that. But at the same time, like if you're a streamer who's worried about it, then it's kind of on you to take the precautions to address that. Like it's a weird problem that only the digital aspect of the game presents. I can't like, I don't know, I guess I get on camera at Star City and then like have to go to the bathroom and then try to run to the bathroom and like watch coverage to see like, oh, what's my opponent on? I gotta like, that seems weird. So, I agree it's definitely unethical and like, just don't maybe, but I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think that, it's a tough spot for streamers, I think, because, the hand hiders or the delays, like, while it is, something to defend you from that happening, I do think it is a disservice to your viewers for the most part.
Yeah.
Because they're watching because they want to interact with you on a meaningful basis. If you're at a 10-minute delay, no one is interacting with you on a meaningful basis.
Yeah, if you put a comment in, you see it like pop up.
And like I don't like Twitch chat is usually pretty terrible anyway. I can't imagine them not knowing what your hand is and still giving you like any sort of advice, or like being at all like worthwhile to have.
Chat lethal.
So just like pull up 3 possible permutations of your hand and then just be like, all right.
Correct.
So let's discuss what might have been or could be.
So I think that if you're a streamer, like you have to go into it knowing like this could be a thing that happens. This is a game that I play that requires leans on a lot of hidden information for me. It is very likely that people will tune into this, and I will, be ghosted. And there's not. I don't think like there isn't a perfect way to combat this. And you can't even like identify people with like screen names in your stream, because there's no way to like say like for sure like they're the same person. Even you could be like 99.999% sure, but I do think that if you are going to stream though, like you just have to be okay with that. And if it is something that truly bothers you for like large events, then you just shouldn't stream them. Like, end of story. And I think that if you do stream them and then you get ghosted and then like you complain about it, which I don't think anyone has, but like if that was like your stance about it, like, oh, I get to complain about how I got ghosted, shut up. Like, just like, no, you don't. Like, I understand. Like, it is like it's a garbage thing to do.
It comes with the territory.
It's a garbage thing to do, and like it is. I feel like it as far as what Magic is to a lot of people, it's a pretty like. It goes against that. Even the most, new to the game player, the most, casual player doesn't really, care about the game, but just likes to play with their friends. Like, they don't want you to, like, I don't care how casual you are. Like, you don't want other people seeing your hand, like, at all. It could just be garbage. You'd be like, no, this is my hand.
Play Magic.
So, you are definitely, like, breaking a fundamental, like, not rule, obviously.
It's like baseball. It's some unwritten rule.
You're breaking like a fundamental like social contract that you have with every other player at Magic the Gathering, that I don't get to see your hand unless I have a card that says I get to, or you show it to me willingly. So since neither of those things are really in play.
Okay, hold on though. Aren't they showing it to you willingly?
That is probably like that's probably where Shroud's line is, right?
Right. Like,
that's probably where he can live in his gray area and make that argument.
Yeah, you offered it up. So let me ask you this: what do you guys think about Ghost riding the whip?
I mean, that's not really a thing anymore, right?
Is it really? That's not. It was so cool though. It was like balling, man. Like,
yeah, I mean the early 2000 teens.
Hey,
is that when it was
Google
popular?
says it's still a thing.
You can still do it. I don't think like people on the Twitter are going to be like, "Oh, dang."
Yeah. I like how you just like made it sound like the introduction to all that.
So
I was just wondering because if you Google ghosting or Ghost riding the whip, there's a really cool picture of a guy surfing on his car.
So I was just amusing myself over here, just thinking about like, nice, about like IRL ghosting, like what would be the equivalent of that? And that would be like, honestly, I mean, this is like a real thing where it's like, if you're in a match, and like I think everybody's been in a situation where it's like maybe you're getting close to time and you're like one of the last matches and you have like a lot of people crowded around. Like if you have people like behind you watching and like you draw a card and they have a reaction, you know what I mean? Like your opponent can see,
or just like a mirror.
Well, that would be like actual equivalent, but things like that could happen. Like I've definitely asked people to not stand behind me before if it's like a serious. Or like if there's something on the line, like TQ or something.
Yeah, it's a weird space. It's a weird thing. I still think that if you are like an avid ghoster, you won't have like I don't think anyone's going to come rushing to your defense. As far as that's concerned, I still think that it's something you shouldn't do. But I don't think there's anything that can really be like done about it, other than people being like, "Don't do it."
What if you can astral project? and you can like Doctor Strange yourself out of your body and then stand behind your opponent.
Oh man.
Like, isn't that just you using your skill to your advantage?
That'd be wild. I think that's like performance enhancing though, right?
No, it probably is. Also, you probably look like you entered a
That's
coma
banned.
for a second. Right?
Yeah,
astral
exactly.
projections
Whoa,
are banned.
whoa, Mike, did you like die here?
Yeah,
And then like your ghost form's like, hey, stop, don't take my body on the All right.
I think like the weird spot is definitely like streaming for like a public audience, and like is that enough to be like, yeah, you are willingly showing your hand to everyone?
I mean, you are literally inviting people to come watch you. That is what you're saying. Like, please come watch my stream. Please subscribe and look at this. Please do. What if you're a person who literally enjoys playing Moto while you're watching this person stream? As a consumer who may have possibly paid money to that streamer, are you still obligated to close the stream if you randomly get paired against that streamer?
I think on a pure moral standpoint, yes.
Yeah, I still agree. But I do.
Yeah, I was like, really? Yeah.
But I think like the capitalist in me is like, yeah, you could make an argument.
Morgan's gonna get those packs.
all of a sudden, Morgan just like, yes, bourgeois streamer.
But it's just like you could just be like, well, I paid for this. All of it.
All right, so I wasn't done with IRL streaming or IRL,
IRL
ghosting. Yeah.
Oh,
So
I'm
also-
sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Ray
it's fine.
Stance.
No, I was thinking on the
think
Pro
it's more
Tour.
of a big thing.
Remember, we had this whole discussion in the past about people like scouting at the Pro Tour.
Oh,
like,
that's fair.
is that like an ethical thing? That's kind of like
Oh, I think
IRL
I think,
ghosting, right?
I mean, I think it's certainly a little bit unethical, especially when you enlist people who aren't qualified to do it for you, and you can only do that because of your position, like of prominence.
You're just like the
Like having
Just
somebody
study
literally
your
write
little-
down cards that were on my board state at the Pro Tour, like close next to me, and having my opponent call a judge on that person, and the judge being like, "Nah, he's allowed to be here," because it was like over the railing area
Yeah.
on the side. That was perhaps one of the most uncomfortable moments of like me playing Magic ever. And it was just like, what was he gonna go tell people? He's casting Whirling Rogue like an idiot, or Whirling Rogue like an idiot. Like
you did it.
I did it.
Just
No,
like
I'm not-
Varys and their little birds.
yeah. I'm not saying that they're the same thing. I think they're in the same realm,
Yeah.
but they're not exactly the same.
Like is that the afterlife of Beetlejuice? Is that
they're in the same
realm?
world. They're in the same world. Yeah.
Well, I think like
Different, yeah.
you could probably even have more of an argument for that sort of those sort of lines, just for the sheer fact that the teams can take advantage of that. Teams can take advantage of scouting. But individual, like, if you don't have a team, like, there's no way that you could
Yeah.
possibly scout as much as these teams can. So,
If you have enough little birds, you could.
yeah, sure. Are you, like, paying people to, like, scout? Like, you're a lone wolf at this Pro Tour. Like, the only people you can scout is what you can walk by at the end. Locals, and what you can walk by at the end of your match, you know?
Yeah.
But these teams, like, not only, like, technically are they, like, 6-man teams, but anyone else that they could be people that are just sharing information. So like depending on where you are at the Pro Tour, like you could know, you could have a whole spreadsheet that you have access to that puts people on what decks they're on, and the teams have that. The people who are organized have that, but as a single player, like you don't. So that I feel like is potentially worse because it's giving an inherent advantage to people that already like have had success on this.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I think like they both sort of exist in the same like morally bad but still like gray area.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get us on a total tangent
No,
there, but I
I
was
think
just
it's
amusing
fair.
myself with these different like versions of it, which hopefully that amused everybody else too. But
I will say, I think that WotC inadvertently tips their hand on whose side they agree with as well, and how they feel about obviously both ghosting but also scouting, because they work pretty hard to protect deck lists now for those teams. Like they might tell you an archetype, maybe. If they do deck checks on or deck techs on like day one, they'll show you cards but never numbers and no sideboards. Like they work really hard to protect for those players. So if the coverage team is going to block for those players, then scouting is probably not something you should be doing.
Yeah.
But, you know. what
And
you
to
gonna
be
do?
fair, like, the information you could get from a deck tech is probably similar information that you could get from, like, a scouting, report. You're not going to get a whole deck list from a scout. You're going to get an archetype
you're
of cards.
You're going to see probably more cards than
They'll
you
reveal,
would generically. Yeah. So, but anyways, I think that's interesting and obviously a discussion worth having. I would say consistently just I want to err on the side of being ethical. So like, you know, don't ghost, shake hands, those kind of things.
Wow, the last minute jab.
The guys had to throw it in there.
So before we head on to Dominaria, did you guys read the Collins Mullen article that he had this
Collins
week?
Mullins wrote an article.
Oh, the die roll thing?
Yeah, Collins Mullen wrote an article. Well, that's the man's name, Collins Mullen.
I know. I can't not say Mullins. And I've explained this before. I've apologized on air to the man. Like, I will call you Collins Mullins, and that's probably wrong, and I'm sorry. But
He wrote an article about die rolling and how he feels that it is sort of a weird area within our game that can be cheated without any repercussion.
Yeah, that was a really interesting article.
It is an
Like,
interesting article. I encourage. It's on the free site of Star City Games, so anyone can go and read it. And I encourage you to do so.
I got pulled in by the article name too.
Yeah,
That was nice.
Prepare to
Yeah,
Die
yeah,
is
Prepare to
the
Die. I was like,
article
"Ooh, what's
name.
this about?"
And he was saying that he had an instance where basically he did not feel that someone had rolled the dice. He makes the argument that someone had just like picked up the dice and then just like slammed it back on the table, and he rolled like a 5, a 2, and a 3, and the opposite of what he rolled is like an 11 on the other side, or something of that nature. And called the judge on it, and the judge was like, yeah, we can't, like, that's all right. Like, the judge had his opponent like show how he rolled the dice, and he did like a slightly modified version of how he rolled them, and yeah, it basically was like Collins felt that he was cheated, but had no way of like actually, you know, proving that or fixing that in any way, shape, or form. And it kind of gives you they kind of discuss like alternatives, like alternative ways of like determining the starting player, pretty much.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing that he brought up, and it was kind of a discussion that was had a little while ago, where like there was some discussion about can they build it into like Wizards Event Reporter, where it's like when the pairings print off, it tells you who is on the play. Or who has choice.
yeah, and
it's like automatic.
I'm
You don't
actually
even have
reading
to
this
do
right now
anything.
because I was wondering if he was going to mention chess, and he does.
Yeah.
Which that seems like an elegant thing, but adding something else that
To word.
Yeah.
Wizard
it's
the
like-
word has to do, where it's like, okay, I think I finally got it. What's this now?
I have to do what? Excuse me. And plus, like within the article, they even argue like how many people like are going to remember their number, you know, or people going to argue about like, oh, well, my number is this, or like, or you know, their indicator. Like people will still have disagreements on like who actually gets to go first, as far as that is concerned.
The system knows all. Do not question the system.
But he even like gave. He said he started like rolling just single dice and calling odd or even. I think that Ross Merriam gave him a suggestion of like, I forget what it was.
Each player chooses. So like, if it's me and Morgan, it's like I'm even, Morgan's odd. We both roll one die,
and then the number,
So we already know like, okay, I'm this, you're that. We both get to roll a die.
and then the result of the two numbers, whether it be odd or even, determines who goes first.
Right.
Which it seems like a good solution, but one that might be complicated to explain.
Yeah.
and people might not understand that the outcomes are all even within that. People might try to say like, oh, well, it's
they're
more
not all-
like
they're 50-50.
Yeah.
Not all even.
not all even, but yeah, 50-50 is what I mean. And people might like make the argument that being like even gives you an advantage rather than odd or something like that.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I also feel like I might have been on like the less than savory side of like a die roll, but that's it's a weird, again, a sort of a weird area within our Magic community.
I've definitely been in a situation that like similar to what he described, where like I felt like my opponent didn't really roll the dice, but it's like, what do you even do? Like, it's like, Judge, I don't think you rolled them, but then they could just say, yeah, I just did this, and then there's really like you said, there's no recourse. I mean, that's why I thought it was super interesting. A couple things I will say, and because people might not know this, so when you're rolling dice, don't use these spin down life counters.
Yeah, no, don't.
Don't use that as a way to have a random die roll because of the order. Like since it's in order, it's not actually
Random.
and it's easy to manipulate. Also, and I know not everyone knows this. You should be using the same set of dice.
Yes.
So you should both be rolling the same, like whether it's like 2d6s or whatever. You should both be using the same dice, not like I roll my dice and then you have your own special dice that you like to use. So I know, like I see it all the time where like people have, they use their own dice or whatever. You should both be using the same dice, and that actually is something where you can call a judge and say, hey, this, this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's go into Dominaria. But before that, I do want to give a quick shout out to our lovely sponsors, Comic Town. They are going to be having a Star City Games IQ on Saturday, April 14th, which is just right around the corner. And of course, they're going to be hosting many Dominaria pre-releases. So check out some of their events at worldofcomictown.com or Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook.
That's a modern IQ.
It is a modern IQ. What did I not just say? Open? Did I just say an IQ?
Star City IQ, which it is.
It's an open.
Just wanted to specify that it is.
It is. It is modern.
Which
it'll have a ton of people
they
in
tend
it.
to attract many people.
So, but it'll be a good time nonetheless. And of course, Dominaria is coming up. And I don't know if you guys read this for pre-releases, but there's going to be 2 promo cards in your Dominaria pre-release box. There's going to be the regular. It's a very gloomy day here in Ohio, unfortunately. Very spooky. Lots of thunder and lightning. Very, very frightening. Anyway,
Did the mic pick that up?
it probably will. I mean, I can hear it,
Well,
so it probably
if you didn't
will.
hear it, it was thunder in the back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's
not
a
ghosts.
lot of lightning and the thunder.
Not ghosts. That's pretty good. But there's going to be a legendary card as well as your regular promo rare, mythic rare, which I think is pretty cool since they're focusing on legendary. And a lot of things within the set, are obviously going to be looking for that. So
After seeing the set, or just what they've shown so far, it's like it's hard to not get a legendary card of some
yeah,
sort, 'cause it's like
or
everything's a
at the very
legend.
least like a historic card. It seems like it's going to be something that is going to be well supported.
I mean, there's a legend in every pack.
Yeah.
So
I know it's just like even just the
spooky. Stop talking about ghosts.
the amount of like uncommon legends is insane. I'm like, man, I'm so ready for cube editions from the set, but we could talk about that.
Oh yeah, so yeah,
Close to
like
the board,
that's
but-
obviously like a good lead into to that. So last week we didn't talk anything about the story of like what's kind of happened so far. Dave, are you pretty? But we've all been listening to the Vorthos cast, so I want to give a quick shout out to them. If you haven't started listening to them, they only have a few episodes out right now, and you can really catch up to like what they're doing right at this moment. And I think it's worth your time to listen to them. They produce a really good show, and it gives you a lot of depth into the history of Magic and what is going on currently, and allows you to understand like why things that are happening now are really cool or really important. So definitely give them a listen.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I'm not a Vorthos guy. I typically don't care about the storyline or background and all this. And I've listened to the Vorthos cast, and it has made the spoiler season a lot better for me because I'm seeing things that I probably would have glossed over, whether it's in the artwork or the like flavor text of the cards.
Yeah.
And I think it's really enhanced the spoiler season for me. So highly recommend it.
We're in listening to the Vorthos cast. We're all pretty caught up with the story and goings ons, and I know, Mike, that those story elements are some of your favorite things about the game. So what do you want to talk about? What do you want to start with, like the story?
I don't know. So it's moving very fast. We're recording on a Tuesday as we normally do, so tomorrow we'll get another piece of this.
Yeah.
But so far we've gotten like within 2 story snippets a full arc of redemption for Liliana Vess, which was like a decade in the making, which is cool. She got to put her brother like to rest, who would become a leech.
Yeah,
Who was like the
or a
head,
lich.
like a lich, whatever. Not a leech.
Not a leech.
Not a leech.
Or not a leash.
Oh, I mean, he probably was like a freak on a leash, but Belzenok's leash. Belzenok is also lead singer of Korn. We're going to get to that in a minute, because that is going to be the new favorite game, by the way. We'll come to that in a second, though.
Bells and Lock?
Bells and Lock? Is it Bells and Lock or Bells and Knock?
It's Bells and Lock.
Bells and Lock. Okay, cool. Yeah, Bells and Lock wrote all of the riffs for Freak on a Leash, and wrote the majority of Follow the Leader, seminal album for the new metal album, or the new metal band Korn. So, anyways, so he, like, this lich had been, which was her brother, had been the head of the section of Cabal in Benalia, which I know you guys talked a little bit before, but we did get a really cool map of like all of Dominaria, and I think it's kind of cool to see where everyone sort of is and what's going on. And honestly, with Urborg sort of being the seat of Belzenlock, like, they're all kind of close to it, which is like, I think is something even I was surprised by. But essentially, you saw the Gatewatch break apart. So the beginning of the Dominaria story definitely happens essentially right after they get there, after the fight with Nicobolus. So it's important to note that at some point the storyline is going to pick up with where Jace was. The end of the Ixalan story is further in the future than where we are currently in the Dominaria story.
We're catching up.
Correct, because he ostensibly planeswalks onto the Weatherlight. They literally stole the storyline from the first Star Trek reboot, where Scotty had to figure out how to beam onto a moving target from a planet, and he does it because why not? But anyways, Nissa just flat out like leaves, like breaks her oath and just says, "No, I'm done with this," because she don't want to be used by Liliana, and she goes back to Zendikar to fix Zendikar. So I think what's really cool about that is like Nissa is a character who got a real big retcon in her personality. She was kind of awful when they first described her as a character, and definitely a xenophobe, if not an outright like racist, if that makes sense. Like, she only liked elves a certain way, and she went to Lorwyn and like kind of enjoyed like what they were doing.
Hasn't that always been like kind of the case with elves, just in general fantasy?
Yes,
like,
but
lore?
she was she was very like negative, and they've slowly turned her into more of a like the focus on the nature and this and that. But so I like this idea of her being like, no, I'm not doing this for you anymore. I'm literally like I miss Zendikar. Like, I'm going to go help Zendikar.
And that makes sense because she's like entwined with the land. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I imagine her returning, and then her and Ashaya having like a slow motion like hug. So, but she's gone. Chandra pulls like a Rocky IV and realizes that the only way that she can do anything is she's got to get stronger. So she planeswalks
go run up some mountains.
Yeah, she planeswalks back to Ragatha to literally run up some volcanoes. Ostensibly, that's where she's going to finally figure out like who Jaya Ballard is, and then they'll come back. But she's gone. Jace isn't there, so it's just Liliana and a Gideon who has a hole in his chest. Like, it's important, like, if you don't remember this, the end of like Hour of Devastation,
he got messed up.
the last thing that happens is that Nicobolus laughs at Gideon in his like indestructible bubble and like puts a finger through, like a claw through it. He's like, and then drives a finger into like Gideon's chest. I think I made this joke last week, but or 2 weeks ago, and I don't care because it's very much like the Captain Hammer, if you've ever seen Dr. Horrible's sing along vlog. He's like, is this what pain feels like? I don't like pain. So he has to get like, they do a cool thing with the story where he has to be healed, and Liliana has to go find the same plants to heal him that she was supposed to find to heal her brother. So they definitely like give you a very small little moment where you're like, oh, so you're just gonna kill like Gideon here?
Like, this might not be a great idea.
But she managed, because we had those San Diego Comic-Con planeswalkers. Just saying. But she managed to heal
like a possible
him.
Future.
And she uses the Chain Veil to defeat her brother, this Lich. But she makes very specific... Josu, thank you. She makes very specific mention that if she does this, she won't be able to use the Chain Veil for a while. So this is a way, it seems like they're moving fast, but at the same time, it does take away sort of her superpower. Because I think the Vorthos podcast really did the best job talking about this. Where like, if you are with a Kopathed or whatever it is, is like, I'm the demon who sent you to get an artifact that will help you kill me, right? Like, there's some weirdness in that story. So by taking this out of play, by saying like, okay, you can't use this again or you'll die, essentially.
They got to recharge the chain veil.
Yeah. So we have that set up. We have some fighting with that, and then the second story, which was much more in my wheelhouse, was Jorah, who is apparently had a submarine. Because if you're gonna be an artificer in Dominaria and live that long, you're just gonna invent the coolest stuff. So she invented a submarine.
It might as well have it look like a fish.
Yeah, that looks like a fish. She pulled the hull of the Weatherlight out, and she is rebuilding it. And she's putting the crew back together. And I think it's kind of interesting to see how the crew has come together. We have a lot of like analogs for older crew members. Some of them are literally family members and descendants.
Yeah, so do we want to talk about that? Because they revealed, like, the whole, like,
yeah, they revealed the whole crew.
Like, crew.
So, we have Shauna Sisay, which is up to Captain Sisay's, a descendant, who is, still has Sisay's ability to sort of be immune to magic, which is illustrated by her. Like, this is something of the Sisay line, apparently, but it's shown on her card by saying it can't be a target of abilities. Right,
your opponent controls.
So it has like half hexproof. In the storyline, they show it as like when we meet the Capuchin, Raff, Street Rat, whatever.
Yep.
Raff Capuchin like makes this illusion, and Jorah can see the illusion fully. And then she kind of asks like Shauna, she's like, "Can you see this?" And she's like, "I don't know, kinda." So like the idea is like she can't really be affected by magic that way, which is cool. So we had that first Capuchin, the legend. What was her name?
Danitha or something like that.
Yeah, Danitha. And it's really they really do a cool fake out here where like Jorah's really happy. She's like, okay, I knew you were here. You're a descendant of Gerard, like this great warrior. Will you help? No. She's like, no, I have a duty. No. And she's like, well, come on, please. And she's like, oh no, I'm sorry. I just said no, bye. And just like leaves. She's like, you're welcome here because you're guest, but don't talk to me anymore. And leaves. And they're like, oh. And then here comes her like younger brother. Who's like, I'll go. I'm a Capuchin.
Quite literally teenage brother.
Yeah. like I just like the picture of like robes that are far too big. Like, I'm a wizard.
And just like bold-faced lies. Just like, hey, like, listen. What's the wizard's name? The head honcho.
Oh, it's oh no, the Joda. Sorry,
Joda's like, he said I was the best and all this jazz, and then like Jorah's like, I know Joda.
Yeah, you've never met this man. Like, well, it was definitely the because I've seen that go around recently. That's the Billy Madison meme, right? Like, no, you haven't. No, but you can imagine if I did. In fact, here's the illusion. And then we got a couple other, like, you had an angel that like apparently has this weird affinity for the, like, it's just like staring at it and like tearing up, like in the awesome powerful, like the power of it. They also find out that the Power Stone still works.
Yeah.
The angel, and I'm gonna forget her name. The angel though is the one who's able to sort of like get it working again.
It's Tiana.
Okay, and it's important because Power Stone is the Power Stone that like was from the planar collapse of Serra Sanctum. So I would hope it still's got a lot of power because that was a plane literally made by a pre-mending walker. So it should be pretty powerful. Then we also have
Arvad.
We have a vampire who shows up. Right, that's Arvad.
Arvad the Cursed. So he's like a white-black card. So he's like cursed.
Yes,
but he still wants to be good.
Yeah, he's a Benalish knight.
And we have a couple of cool connections to this. And again, there's a lot of ways to look at this. You have like, if you look at the storyline for the original Weatherlight crew, you had like Selenia, the Dark Angel, and you also had Krovax, who quite literally became cursed. So we have this concept of like a vampire there. It'll be interesting to see like, because his flavor text is, "I won't abandon the Weatherlight. My destiny is to serve at Jorah's side. This illness means I must trust my faith more and myself less." And in Masters 25, we got Isan's Shade, which and a little storyline behind that guy. So to see another like Benalia Knight who seems to be cursed in this case with vampirism, like I want to know what the real connection is there. And then we also get Slimefoot.
Yeah, the stowaway.
So apparently he was just like started out as just like a mushroom, and they're just like, oh yeah, like didn't even notice it, and then it just grew into like this giant, phallid type thing or a sapling or whatever.
Now, I saw that we also got our finally got a little bit of spoil of our version of our everyone's favorite Goblin Squee. Is he part of the Weatherlight crew though? I didn't see that he was.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I hope that that card also, by the way, the art on that is just choice. And Squee is holding his favorite toy.
He's always got that
course.
toy, man.
He's got to have his toy, and the question before was, is he actually immortal? Guess what? Actually immortal. I love that Yawgmoth's lasting impact on Dominaria is literally making one goblin immortal forever. Just like, here you go, bud. So, but yeah, no, I think it's cool that Jorah going around and putting this back together, and then at the end of that story, Jorah says she's expecting a friend, and I'm going to do this again. Here planeswalks Johnny.
Yeah.
To talk to Jorah, which I think is cool because we don't know what Johnny's been doing, but obviously he said that he had these friends on Dominaria, so at some point they became friends. And I love the fact that Jorah being like the character she is, probably just like, okay, you're a cat man, and I appreciate that. So, I think it's been really fun to see like the Weatherlight get put back together, and obviously we've had a ton of spoilers. We've had the Weatherlight itself be spoiled as a vehicle, which
now we just need the Predator.
it's destroyed. I don't know what else to tell you.
Hey, so is the Weatherlight, man. Got to put it back
I
together.
don't know why Jorah would like, hey,
No, somebody will.
I was sure. Was there anybody on the other side who, like, I don't know, like, Volrath just like still just like around for some reason? Probably not. I think Volrath's very dead. But it was really cool to see this and really fun, and getting to see these cards is, I think, I don't know, Morgan, what do you think here so far? Like, you said you don't really have nostalgia for M25, and that's why it was more of a miss for you. Is any of this working on you, even though you didn't play in those original sets? Like, these names probably don't mean as much to you, but is the way that Wizards is crafting this, is it working?
No, it's cool. I think, like, I mean, I know the names. Like, I wasn't around for when the story was unfolding, but, like, I feel that a lot of the story of Dominaria is such a core story to Magic that if you start playing Magic and start playing it around, people that have, played the game longer than you have, then you're going to hear, like, the story. Like, you're going to hear, like, what happened. Like, people know what the Weatherlight is, who know who, like, when you say a Capuchin or, Sisay, things like that. Squee, just, like, all of these, iconic sort of capstones within Magic's history. Even though it's been so long since we've actually had a focus on it, it just feels like it is, like, as far as followable stories, it feels like it is the one that was, like, the longest to unfold. It had, like, it covered, like, the most sets, it feels like. Yeah. I don't know if that's actually true, but...
Yeah, I mean,
it did cover the most sets, but...
I mean, I started playing, like, right in the middle of the Weatherlight saga as that was going on, and, like, probably my favorite block of all time is Invasion block, which is obviously about the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria. So, I
just feel like so much of early Magic was this story, and all the other stories are kind of forgettable. But this one, you can put your rose-colored glasses on and kind of look back on it, and like
rose watercolor glasses.
and pick what you want from it as being, like, important. And I think, like, you have it happen in waves as well. So you had, obviously, all the sets when the story was actually being told. And then you have the, planar chaos, future sight block, or what have you, time spiral. And you have that, and I think, like, that reinvigorated it for a certain group of players that got to bring it forward, and now we're going to have this again, which is going to reinvigorate it again. So I think it's something that keeps reoccurring in Magic, and they keep doing things to make it relevant and important for you to know. And I think that it is working, and I do wonder if this is sort of a send-off. I do wonder if this is going to be like, we're going to tie up some loose ends on Dominaria, and then we're going to shift our focus to another plane as being, like, the anchor plane of Magic.
I mean, possibly. I don't know that there will be an anchor plane for Magic again. I think that's more of what it's looking at. And they want to be able to use these characters. The one thing that sort of hurts when you have characters like Jorah, who are so important and is immortal, but also is not a planeswalker, that's tough. But I don't disagree with that. I think what's really cool is the way that you literally just described that, is how they've designed this block. And I think this is the coolest, like, way design has done that in a long time. The legendary sorceries and the sagas.
Oh man, the sagas.
Yeah.
But they're literally being shown from the perspective of current Dominarians retelling these stories, right? Like some of the sagas are literally tapestries, right? Meaning that like, and if you look at like how stories are passed down from generation to generation, you have the oral tradition, you have, so like when you look at like the time of ice or like the first eruption, right? Like this is literally the lore of these people being told. So when you say you've heard of these things, right? Like you knew of the Ice Age, but maybe not the specifics. Well, oh, here's Time of Ice. I knew there was an Ice Age, right? So literally, you as a player who didn't encounter it the first time, yeah, that's fun fact. That's literally Dave and mine's. The Time of Ice is both of our wallpapers right now. Sagas, as Morgan already mentioned, perfect.
They're so good. Like I want every set to have sagas just so we get more like awesome phone wallpaper. Because the box sometimes isn't ideal. Planeswalkers, you fare a little bit better. They're more of a sort of a long
If you can
painting.
get the full art too, like if you can get the original art, yeah.
But normal art is that square that doesn't quite really work out as well as you'd want it to. And then when Wizards puts out their stuff, they usually have these ugly like borders around it, and you're like, come on, just give us the whole thing. But man, these sagas, the art on them is all amazing, and I think it's because they get to have the opportunity to sort of ape other forms of art.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it feel very evocative of real storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah, like you mentioned the tapestry, you got the stained glass,
Right,
like
of
the
Benalia. The really cool blueprint map for the Mirari conjecture, despite the fact that is named like an episode of Big Bang Theory, but that's okay. I think what's
Statues for the Gerard one.
I think what's really cool about this for me though too is not just the art. The way that these get to do this, they get to, obviously invoke like past mechanics and major things, but also major ideas. Like if you're a player who plays like a lot of EDH, but again you're a player within the last 10 years, I guarantee you played against the Mirari before, right? Even if you don't know what the storyline is for what the Mirari is,
Or
right?
more than likely Mirari's Wake.
Well, I mean the card Mirari is pretty popular in EDH as well.
Oh, I guess that's true. In EDH,
And so is Memnarch, which is also the Mirari.
yeah.
So
what?
But I think like Mirari's Wake, as you said, is very true. So I think like again, I think this is I don't know, like WotC somehow struck pure gold with this, because literally players who even didn't encounter it the first time will experience these memories the way that like characters would experience these memories. Like, oh yeah, that happened, and that is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and like I said, like I'm not like big Vorthos guy. Like I kind of knew what was going on in the original story, like of Dominaria, like the invasion, all that. Like you could just by seeing the cards, you could kind of get a good idea of what was going on. But like seeing the cards in Dominaria now, like the set, it's just like, oh yeah, I remember that, or like I remember that character,
Right.
or whatever, and it, like that's why I started listening to the Vorthos guys, because I wanted to learn more. I was like, how are
We're
these
still gonna
connected?
do an advertisement for the Vorthos cast, but you know what, guys? If you ever listen to us, which I'm sure that you do, not, but they really do a much better job breaking this stuff down. But I as just like a fan of this stuff, like you're looking at all of these legendary sorceries, right? Like so, Urza's Ruinous Blast depicts like Urza blowing up the plane at the end of the Brothers' War and causing the Ice Age, right? You don't need to remember all that stuff, but you do like. Urza's like the whole like the Brothers' War thing is such a huge thing that just getting to see that depiction of it is awesome.
Yeah, you've probably heard of the Brothers' War, and you know of Ice Age, or that it happened, or that it was at least a set. You could say, well, here's how they're connected.
Right.
Urza blew up Argoth or whatever, and then...
And the awesome thing is all these flavor texts are the same. So Urza's Ruinous Blast says, centuries ago, one man's vengeance plunged the world into ice and darkness. Awesome. That's Urza. This is what happened with that. Cool. And that's probably the same thing that people on Dominaria were told. Like, yeah, there was this guy like Urza who did this thing a long time ago, right? Karn's Temporal Sundering. Like, so Karn's actual storyline was crazy because he's literally Silver Golem because silver was the only metal that could go back in time, so they could send him back in time to try and change. There's a lot of time travel throughout there.
Kind of like a Terminator.
Yeah, but a really bad one.
Or like a DeLorean.
But he didn't kill
He's a
anybody.
Terminator who took a vow of pacifism. So like, but it's a centuries ago. A quest to harness time became a spiral into chaos. So literally, you see like the connection from his original like time travel in the Weatherlight Saga all the way into literally time spiral and planar chaos.
Yeah.
Yawgmoth's Vile Offering says centuries ago a mad god offered a simple trade, right? And this is sort of like this whole setup here. You have is that you have literally with Gerard in this art holding Urza's head, which is so awesome. And then you have Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which is when, so centuries ago, a pyromancer spark ignited a fiery conflagration. So this is depicting the story of how, Jaya had been taken over by, I'm going to remember it was a spirit in a ring, and Joda helped like break this from her. And when she finally broke free of of that influence, is when she sort of had this notice here that apparently like fiery planeswalkers all ignite their spark by just lighting things on fire. Like Sandra's, they go Super Saiyan 3, they light the world on fire, and then they move on. And then we have Kamal's Druidic Vow. And so centuries ago, a barbarian laid his rage to rest. And this is really cool because, again, Kamal is probably a character you've seen. Again, if you're an EDH player, there's maybe not Kamal Pit Fighter because that card's terrible. But
It was good limited.
But Kamal, what's the other Kamal? Fist of Krosa. Was just an overrun on a stick. It was actually really good. It was amazing. I don't know how common it still is, but like to have these characters listed this way, and again, like these are told as in like, oh yeah, this happened. Like, have you ever heard the legend of Kamal? Like the pit fighter who became a druid. Hey, did you hear the legend of Jai? Like that to me, like it kind of gives me goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie, it's so good, and everything I've seen out of this set, like. I have no idea how these uncommon legends will play in Standard. I don't care. I think I'll probably be drafting all the way until the core set comes out. Everything about what the set is doing, like, excites me. And from a flavor perspective, and like, again, they don't always nail flavor into it. Sometimes top-down really works. We saw it with the first Innistrad. Sometimes it doesn't work when you look at the second Innistrad and trying to rope Eldrazi into it, But Rosewater had a really cool article this week talking about like how they came up with and their sort of new design paradigm, like where they want to have these meetings first and discuss like, since you're not going to have blocks, you're just going to have sets, like what's the goal of the set. And it said it took them a while to get to the concept of history and what that actually meant, but I think they've done it so eloquently. Like you can see how perfect this feels.
Yeah, I think he said what the reason why they didn't go back to Dominaria sooner is just because like it doesn't have a central theme to it.
Right. It isn't again, like Innistrad is the Gothic horror one, yeah. And like Theros is the Greek gods, and exactly. So now they've given it one, and I think it's very impressive. Also, if you do look at that article, you can also see Richard Garfield's initial designs for sagas. Those are also really cool.
Those
are cool. But also, it's like I'm reading them. It's like, does he still think he's designing like alpha cards here? Because it's like
that's what he does.
Win the game. Like all these
you got your own like play token with it, and you played a board game on on your Magic card. Yeah. But yeah, so I think for me as a guy who really does care about the story, I think I'm super excited. But I think like literally listen to you, Morgan, answer that question, and the fact that your response as a person who didn't play in those early Dominaria like base sets, literally having the same connection to it that they're designing to, like, yeah. We could be really cynical and be like, well, that's how the corporate like structure got you. But in all reality, like this is such a good payoff to this. And I think I don't want to say they had to stick this landing because it's maybe because M25 wasn't as exciting as they wanted it to be, or maybe because it is Magic's 25th anniversary, or maybe because we haven't been a Dominaria forever, or maybe because it's Richard Garfield. But I think like if you look at this year and you're looking at a celebration of Magic, Dominaria I think is really setting up to be that true celebration of Magic. And I don't know, I'm beyond excited for this.
So you can tell that this is something that they're being successful with, because the set was basically like half or not. Either half or over half of the set was already spoiled before spoiler season started, and people are still super excited about
it. Yeah.
And maybe that's more of a comment on like where Standard is or not, but like people aren't like getting spoilers, getting new cards, and being like, whatever.
I already read this, right? I think that part of that is also the card frames. They're being effective. I wasn't sure at first when I saw it, but like looking at the way they've used the legendary card frame on like those, not just the legends, but the sorceries and stuff, it's flashy and eye-catching. And the sagas, of course, are, I think like, this is just a testament to how playing with the card space can be a double-edged sword. I think we all agreed that Aftermath was kind of hideous, but these sagas are gorgeous, right? Like these are just really cool, and I think that there's such an eye-catching element to these. Essentially, these historic quote unquote pieces that you can't help it. Even though you may have read the card, like I know that some of the cards I'm seeing the last few days, like I read through initial spoiler, but I don't feel like I did because like now I'm experiencing the card as well. And maybe that sounds way too like experience the cards, man. Like open up your mind to the doors of perception, bro. Like
I get what you're saying. Like most of the cards that they're showing, we've already known about. But like seeing the actual card, it's just like, oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I can't wait to see more.
And again, those little flavor nods on there that are just so, I don't know, incredible. We already mentioned the land, or maybe we didn't mention it on here because I think we were talking about it. But
Zilfrin Void.
Yes, which is, if you haven't read the flavor text on that card, they when they did the promo release, they mentioned it and how like you could look at both versions of this card and be like really sad because essentially it's Teferi looking at where Zhalfir should have been, except for he can't phase it back in now. So like his home city is just gone, and it's his fault. But the Vorthos cast mentioned this, and then Dave, you pulled it up and made me remember that we had that commander card, Teferi's Protection, right?
It shows him like actually phasing it out.
Yes, but it's like the same art. It's so like it's like here's young Teferi who is this brash, like arrogant guy who's like, "Don't worry, Zhalfir, I'll protect you." And now here's old Teferi going, "Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done that." And but not in I don't even mean that in a joking way. Like he seems very just like, I wish I could go home, but it whispers to him, but he can't. So I'm excited to see what how more of this flavor pays off. We're obviously getting a ton more legends we'll probably see in the storyline, and some of that is kind of frustrating, I guess, but because that feels kind of Kamigawa-y to me. But that's my only really complaint is there might be too many legends on the legendary plane, like on the legendary theme set that I don't really have room to complain. So, do we want to talk a couple cards then before we finish off here? Obviously, we have a Palooza coming, but I think that there are some cards that are definitely worth talking about, and we're getting the mythics and the really big cards in the set. I think obviously a lot sooner than we would have because of those leaks, but we haven't really talked about them because we wanted to respect people who didn't really want to use until they were actually spoiled. So, what cards do you want to talk about?
I could talk about a card that just came out today. It's Shalai, Voice of Plenty. It's 3 generic and a white for a legendary creature angel and has flying. It says you, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. And then it has an activated ability, which is 4 generic green, and it's put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. It's a 3/4. I think this card is pretty good. Pretty good. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, not only for like standard but modern implications for it.
Interesting.
Due to the fact that it can't be bolted. It can be fatal pushed if you have revolt.
Dismembered Path.
It can be dismembered in Path. For sure. Terminate. But it is a lightning rod.
Yeah, I know, sure.
They have to kill that to kill any of your other creatures. It could be something that we see in like creature-based combo decks. It could be something we see in like Chord of Calling decks. But it's pretty nifty. It is under the new rules as well because we see it does protect your planeswalkers still,
right?
Which is important. But I think I like this card for standard because I think the green-white tokens is actually getting a lot of pretty interesting tools. And this could be one of them. Definitely granting your opponent sort of one card you have to interact with before you have to interact with the other cards, the other pertinent cards on my board is pretty good when you're trying to, have a deck that relies on, potentially just one creature getting through and dealing like enough damage. But I really like this card, and I think that a lot of people kind of like it as well. And it might surprise you where it shows up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And obviously the rider ability on it, like, you may not be immediately impactful, but honestly, I think of a card like Sylvan, or not Sylvan. That's not right, because that card was in Oath of the Gatewatch. That's not what I was thinking. Advocate. Why can't I think of it now? The 2/3 for 2.
Sylvan Advocate?
Yes.
Was it Sylvan Advocate? Oh, I thought Sylvan was Dominaria for some reason. No, whatever. Sylvan Advocate. Where it's like, you may not use it immediately, but like later it just gets more powerful, and for that card, like, okay, so you had to deal with this 3/4, and if you can't, you draw it as an isolated threat. It does do some crazy things. I also think like the design here is really really cool because like in the past when you've had cards that say each other thing you control get hexproof, then like historically it's been a race to put two of those things in play. You had like Sterling Grove effects or the Drogskull captains from Innistrad, where it's like, hey, let's get two of these in play, and then we have hexproof forever. And this, by virtue of being legendary, says you can't do it. So I think that's pretty cool. The card I want to talk about is Cabal Evangel, which is a common. It's a generic and a black for a 2/2 creature human cleric.
What a great card.
So I just really like Grizzly Bears. No, I want to talk about this card because I made reference to this this sort of game with Belzenlok, and I think that first of his name that I think is really important, and I think we should all adhere to this. So Belzenlok is like the bane of actual history. He is trying to present himself on the plane as being the person who is responsible for all of these big events. And he's also trying to claim all of the former titles. So this Evangel is like the herald for Belzenlok, Order of Merlin First Class. And it says, all hail the Demon Lord Belzenlok, Evankar of the Stronghold, Scion of Darkness, Doom of Fools, Lord of the Waste, Master of the Even Hand, Eternal Patriarch of the Cabal. The Patriarch of the Cabal. And when you look at this, like some of these, like I have to go back and even look at this. Like Evansar of the Stronghold or Evankar, whatever it is. We know that at one point was Volrath, and then it was it wasn't actually Krovax, right? Whoever ascended.
It's Edvikar ascended, but it is Krovax.
It is Krovax, right? Yeah, okay. And then like Scion of Darkness was a demon from Legions.
Like Legions, yeah.
Yeah. Scion or Doom of Fools is Tevazat, which is like an old planeswalker. Lord of the Wastes was Yawgmoth, right? I don't remember who Master of the Ebon Hand actually was at the time. The Patriarch of the Cabal was...
Cabal Patriarch.
It was actually a card. It was an actual card, but then you also had at various times different people actually have that mantle. Technically, that is what he really is currently. He's that of the he's the leader of the Cabal, which is still here, and it's important because like this is a cleric because that was a big deal when the Cabal were first like sort of introduced, and one of the major Onslaught was a tribal block where clerics were a thing, and I think it's the only time clerics have been a thing. Am I right? Like as an
actual like pushed tribe.
As a pushed tribe.
I think so. Yeah.
Like it's either having been creatures or clerics, but I think it's the only time that you've ever had cards that said like that's where you had like Rotlung Reanimator. Which was the inspiration for Zathra Necromancer.
You had the triple white cleric that you could like tap clerics to prevent damage.
Yeah,
it was like
you had the one was you could just like pay a white or a black and you could sacrifice a cleric and it's like they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life or whatever, and you could just like combo people out with clerics, like combo clerics with Rotlung Reanimator. I think it's a crazy thing, but I think like this. So the game with Belzenlok then is to every time you mention Demon Lord Belzenlok, then you need to give him a new honorific. Or a new nickname, something else that is his now. Like I don't care if it's like Demon Lord Belzenlok, leader of the X-Men. Like I don't really care what it is. Like he's Cyclops now. But I think like this, he deserves a new honorific, and this credit goes to Keller for this. He said that for the Palooza we have to come up with a bunch of them, and I'm gonna try and write a bunch down. I mentioned the Order of Merlin First Class because I felt like I know that Dumbledore has like a bunch of honorifics, so you could just give them all. And of course, there's a million from Game of Thrones, like just like Mother of Dragons, Khaleesi of the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, like all of these like things that are awesome. But I love the flavor of this, like that he's doing this, and I guess since I'm talking about that, we can talk about the man himself, the D-Man himself,
the D-Man himself.
What?
Can I just say, I just want to mention, so like the first mention that we get of Belzenlok in the story, so I think it was like actually like the very first scene, I guess, that they have on Dominaria, where it's like these like people in the Cabal and they found was it Dagon Blackblade?
Yeah, Dagon Blackblade's Black Blade.
Like the actual sword. And they're like, oh yeah, it was forged by Dagon Blade. And they're like, but we don't say that. It was Belzenlok.
It wasn't even just like we don't say that. It was like, no, who did it? And it was like, oh right, Belzenlok did it.
Yeah.
So Demon Lord Belzenlok, Breaker of Chains, is 4 black for a 6/6 legendary creature, Elder Demon. So it does have the Elder creature type, which we've seen recently on the Elder Dinosaurs. Before that, in the Elder Dragons from Dragons of Tarkir, and then of course the Elder Dragons, way back,
Nicol
like
Bolas.
Nicol Bolas. So Flying Trample, when Demon Lord Belzenlok enters the battlefield, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card, then put that card into your hand. If the card's CMC is 4 or greater, repeat this process. Demon Lord Belzenlok deals 1 damage to you for each card put in your hand this way. So, it starts exiling cards, from top of your library, and you immediately get at least one. You're going to draw at least one card. If it's CMC is 4, then you get to repeat the process. Seems pretty interesting. Definitely comes off as very demonic. Whereas, yeah, go ahead, keep taking stuff. Keep taking stuff. Come on, I'm going to make you powerful. Keep taking stuff. I don't know what you can really do with it, like in standard, without seeing other cards. Just because you'd want a way to stack your deck ostensibly for this. Otherwise, you're probably just going to I'll draw Fatal Push and then move on.
I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to even I think it may be good enough because at the very worst, it's just draw a card.
Oh no,
use the
absolutely.
Flying
It's
Trample.
6/6 Flying Trample, draw a card, but is that really good enough for constructed play?
But it could also be you hit 2 lands and then a spell, so you're just drawing 3 cards.
I guess that's true. Do you get the lands too?
Yeah.
Then put
You just
that card.
exile. You exile until you hit a non-land card.
Yeah, but the lands.
Oh, you
get
only
exiled.
get. You only get.
Yeah, you don't get the
card.
lands. Oh my god. Okay, if you got the lands, I
okay,
would be.
never mind.
So this,
I still think it's fine.
it's definitely fine. But I think it feels like it's I like this as a demon because it feels like it's asking you for to break it. Come on, you could do it. Think of all the cards we could draw. Yeah, you're gonna take damage for each one, but think of the power, and I think that's kind of cool. So, we'll see what he is as a villain. But he already seems fairly impressive. At least a lot more impressive than any of the other demons that Liliana's fought. Every demon that Liliana's fought so far has been super underwhelming. Like I said, Kapathopathed.
Who was the last one? Who was the guy in Amonkhet?
So the guy
Razaketh.
Razaketh. So here's the thing. That storyline, the actual story, was insane for it because he turned the river into blood, and then Liliana made all of the creatures in the river that died because of that, all the crocodiles and stuff, eat Razaketh. She literally used necromancy on all of these crocodiles, and if I remember correctly, it made Nissa really sick, physically ill, because it was so horrific to see. So it's just oh my, and she was just no, you just crocodiles go. So it was kind of messed up actually, but that is what Razaketh was. I don't remember. Razaketh has a card, right?
Yeah.
I remember what it does.
He you could sacrifice creatures and
Oh, that's the 8/8.
Yeah.
Wait, it's an 8/8. Uh-oh. It's better than Belzenlok. Well, Belzenlok's also Razaketh. He just took his actual name.
Yeah,
Right.
he turned the river into blood.
Yeah, you remember that. You weren't even on that plane, but he did it.
So do you think that he's an actual elder demon, or he just calls himself that?
Well, I think that's something that we've seen it put up there a couple times. And who knows? If he's a legitimate elder demon, then we don't know how old he was and how many of these events on the plane he could have actively witnessed. I don't really know how demons are spawned. I don't know if that's something the lore really gets into, so I have no idea.
Well, when a mommy demon and a daddy demon love each other very much.
When a grinning demon and, I don't know,
The Lord of the Pit.
a Lord of the Pit make sweet, sweet music.
Dave, did you have a card you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, sure. The card that I'm pretty excited to see, how it doesn't constructed, is History of Benalia. So I think the sagas are really hard to evaluate because we haven't seen anything like them before. I guess
Right.
they're somewhat similar to Planeswalkers, kind of, but you don't have as much control over, when the abilities are used. But seeing all these, I think a lot of them are kind of underwhelming at first, but I think in the end they'll end up being more powerful than what we're giving it credit for. But History of Benalia is one that jumped out to me as okay, this seems really good. So History of Benalia it's a saga, so it's 1 white. The first and second chapters are both create a 2/2 night creature with vigilance, a token with vigilance, and then on the third chapter, night 2 control get +2/+1 until end of turn. So pretty simple, but so for 3 mana you're essentially getting 2 2/2s, and then on the third chapter you're buffing your team. Then you could potentially swing in for a huge chunk. So, if you pair that with we've seen other knights in this set that seem pretty good. Definitely constructed playable. So I think you don't necessarily need to have like an all knights deck, but I think like it has the potential, especially if you have like two of these in play at the same time. It seems like really good.
Yeah, so I this card actually caused me to go and just like do a gatherer search for knights, I think last week. And one thing that's kind of interesting is a lot of the vampires from Ixalan are knights, because like there's like the conquistadors have like soldiers and knights. So like that's interesting. And then also you have, because like you'll have like Benalia and also still have like Oketra's Monument in standard at the same time. So there's definitely some ways to play around with some of these creatures. And then you mentioned knights, I think of like Knight of Grace and Knight of Malice, which are these sort of like flavorful callbacks to Black Knight and White Knight. Some very iconic cards. And the key with Black Knight and White Knight, and then we had like Silver Knight, was that they cost either white or black. They're 2/2s with first strike, and they have a protection from a color. Well, we don't do protection anymore, so the Knights of Malice and of Grace have hexproof from Black and White, and they're 2/2s with first strike that also they get +1/+0 as long as any player controls a black permanent. So they kind of want to be played together. And man, that's a sweet 2-drop. This, like, oh, I'll play this Knight of Reprisal. Next turn, I'll play my History of Benalia, and like now this is a 3/2 with first strike and attack, and I'm getting a knight. And then your opponent has to look and go, oh, okay, so they're attacking for 5 next turn, and then they get another guy, and then okay, I've got
next turn they're attacking for like.
Plus, you got to cast a spell that turn after it. So I think like I agree with you. It's pretty good, and we do see the seeds of that. I think it's kind of interesting that we're getting some. Again, I mentioned the clerics before, but like we're getting some creature types that we haven't really played with a little bit. Obviously, we have some goblin push cards. Goblin ring or not ringleader. I wish.
Yeah, don't put that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No, seriously.
It's a modern. Good lord.
A person that it was either FNM or it might have been that random IQ went. I don't remember. Somebody came up and played Ringleader, and then had to be told their deck wasn't legal for the event, and I felt very bad. But you have War Chief, and you have
Siege
Gang Commander. So you have goblins maybe making a small appearance. We have wizards being pushed a little bit with both the counterspell and like the pseudo counterspell and pseudo lightning bolt that they cost a red and a blue if you have a wizard. And I think that like seeing some of these things, like it's kind of cool. Like put some of these more sort of like different creature types we haven't looked at in a while, and then you get to play the Gatherer game more, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
To just be like, okay,
yeah, I think Baral, Chief of Compliance, is going to be a pretty important card for if Wizards is a thing. I think that's going to be pretty good.
Doesn't seem bad.
Yeah,
and it's a wizard and it's a legend, so it lets you do a bunch of things that. From this set. So
do you want to maybe stop our discussion of this here, just so like we're not infringing too much on the Palooza?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. I obviously I think it's probably shown through in me doing this, but like I'm really excited for this, and I'm really happy that they seem to care as much as I do, because I think this could have gone very badly the other direction if they were just like, here's the name Dominaria, but we didn't really like. I guess I could have seen a darker timeline where Wizards is like, well, New World Order says we really can't embrace these these past events because most players won't identify with them, and I think that's when you really like lose players like myself and like Keller, who's friend of the show, who are just like, I have been invested in this, and you're just like, nah, we're just done. We're just going to wash our hands of it. So to see them embrace it so strongly, and then to make it resonate in ways that are good for me and good for players who don't enjoy the lore like me, I think that's awesome.
Well, I think they're doing a really good job at both, doing the callbacks to like events that have happened, but also introducing like this new generation of characters. Like there's so many legends in this set. It's like it's hard to keep track. Like I don't know all the names yet, but
right.
Like the new Weatherlight crew, and things like that. Like I don't know. I think it's really cool, and I think they're doing a good job at both like calling back to what has happened, but also saying, okay, well, here's where we're at now. These are the new, I guess, leaders of the Dominaria. Whatever.
Sure. And you know what? I think they can afford to take risks because they know that the next set that they are coming out with is a core set, and if
that'll fit real tight.
Well, like So if they, if they do like have a hard time onboarding new players with Dominaria, that's okay because now we have a set that is specifically designed to onboard, new players to some degree, which you're not going to be cast out because of you don't understand like the stories behind the lore or anything like that. I would hope that seeing the set like as a new player would encourage you to figure out like what all this is about, like why is this so important. But if it's something that doesn't cause you to do that, then the core set might be more up your alley to jump into Magic.
Yeah. Ask a friend. If you say, I don't understand what the song is about, who can let me know? I will. I hope you get like a like just like everyone stands up and like have this like really inspiring moment where it's like, I will tell you, and that's it. There's only 2 people who know.
Then you'll start out centuries ago. But I think Dominaria is going to be pretty cool, and I'm excited to see the full set and excited to talk about it on our Palooza. So before we go into the wrap-up, do want to give a shout-out to BCW Supplies. You can check them out at bcwsupplies.com and buy some stuff to protect your cards or other various collectibles you might have in your home. So, over the weekend, we kind of have everything that's going on. So I don't know if everything's going to be televised necessarily, but we have 2 GP Seattles because that's weird. It's going to be both Standard and Legacy.
GPCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCCC
idea
like one of them Seattle, and the other one's
what
Tacoma.
it is. I assume they're both in the same location.
SeaTac.
But yeah, it's probably. I don't know. Maybe they finally got the message to stop doing that. And then we have the Open in Milwaukee, which is going to be modern. So plenty of Magic to enjoy over the weekend. I know that Milwaukee would definitely be on Twitch, so you can definitely check that out. I don't know. I would imagine that Seattle is also going to be broadcast, but more than likely it's going to be standard, I would guess.
I don't know. I don't know how they're doing that broadcast. It's
I don't know
kind of weird.
if they are.
They overlap, I think, too.
Yes.
So like, you can't necessarily play in both GPs.
Right.
I guess you could scrub out of the first one and play in the other one, but
who has that kind of money? Oh. But I know that as far as modern is concerned, there was a recent. Dave was talking about this before the show, like a recent breakdown of the MOCS that happened over the weekend. And it seems like we have humans and Black Red Hollow One being pretty dominant. I would say not necessarily dominant, but like the most the decks that showed up most.
Definitely
and had
the highest win percentage.
There was another deck on the list that had a pretty good win percentage, I thought. As well,
I guess like not only just the highest win percentage, but like if you're looking at like the most played decks.
Yeah.
And like what had the best win percentage. So obviously you're gonna have like a one-off deck that maybe did really well, but if you're looking at I guess a combination of metagame share and win percentage, those seem to be the two best decks at the moment. But as you know, with Modern, things can change quickly. I mean, it was not even a month ago that we said like Jund was like the most played and probably the best deck in Modern, and now it's probably still top 10, but definitely beatable. So,
yeah, for sure. But so that'll be a fun tournament to watch. Modern tournaments are always just the hottest to fire, and definitely investigate more and see if Wizards actually going to be broadcasting Seattle. Like I said, I imagine that it will be, but and then we got to get a little bit of a wave goodbye to standard as it is, and from what I can see, standard's kind of been better than it's been in a while, I guess, and it's not something that I've been actively following, unfortunately. Kind of fell off the PPTQ train due to just being busy on the weekends, unfortunately. But I might check it out and see where the format's at. Then hopefully that's not just completely overrun with the Scarab God. But I'm not gonna hold my breath.
That's fair.
That's gonna be it for this week's show. If you are listening to us via iTunes, feel free to leave us a review or a rating. Really helps us get some visibility. If you're listening to us via MTG Cast, feel free to check out some of the other awesome shows that are on that network. And again, I do want to reiterate that we do encourage you to check out the Vorthos Cast as well. If you want to reach out to us, we have Twitter. It's just YourEndstep, and when you add us, it's at YourEndstep. We also have a Gmail account at YourEndstep@gmail.com. And we have our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/@YourEndstep. We are able to bring you the show week in and week out due to our Patreon and our lovely sponsors. Again, they are Comic Town Gaming Center and BCW Supplies. And our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/@YourEndstep. And if you feel free, we do thank our patrons for helping us produce the show. And if you want to become a patron, you can find out more information on that website. But that's going to be everything for us this week. We'll catch you next time, and you have a great one. Bye.